And contrary to what President Trump has said, Article 2 does not give him the power to do anything he wants. And I'll just give you one example that shows you the difference between him and a king, which is the Constitution says there can be no titles of nobility. So while the president can name his son Baron, he can't make him a baron.
Thank you. The founding.
Hey there, guys. Welcome to the channel. So Democrats, long ago, they set a precedent about what is acceptable and what is fair game in politics. They did it when Harry Reid instituted the nuclear option for judicial appointments. They did it when they weaponized the impeachment process. And they did it when they repeatedly mentioned Donald Trump's son, Barron. All of his kids, really, but I'm talking about the minor son. Even going so far as to execute a damn search warrant on the kid's room. Now, they obviously believe that it is fine and dandy, just totally okay to mention or even attack a president's children, even minor children. So you might have noticed or remember, during the Trump impeachment inquiry, some were even laughing as they mentioned Barron Trump, who was just a kid then, kid now. This isn't the first time something like this has happened. You had Rosie O'Donnell commenting about Barron basically being autistic. She thought he was autistic. It's insane. It's disgusting to even think about the things that people will say. John Henson tweeted things about Barron and implied it was based on the parenting of his parents. The kind of stuff really does go all the way back to at least even the Bush girls, when they were plastered all over the media because they were drinking underage in college. And they used it to impugn the Bush's parenting. But come on, man. Drinking underage in college, I'm not suggesting anyone go do that, but it happens. And it's not newsworthy, I promise you. And I don't recall, guys, let me know in the comments if I'm wrong, but I don't recall conservatives ever targeting the Obama's children in any way, I remember Republicans and conservatives, they had respect for the Obama's family, at least for their privacy. But we got to move on to today's story. We got to talk again about Joe Biden finally acknowledging his 7th grandchild, Hunter Biden's child. And I know I did a video on this earlier, but guys, I wanted to dig in again and dig in deeper because this topic just upsets me so damn much. I think it's absolutely disgusting. And obviously the situation around Hunter, it's complicated, but this is just one of the many parts of his life that's now in the spotlight, and it seems like a significant shift in what's considered fair game in politics. Let me know in the comments if you think that I'm right about that.
The child in question, just 4 years old, a girl Hunter Biden had with Lunden Roberts. He says he had an encounter with while he was battling his cocaine addiction. Writing in his 2021 memoir, quote, "I had no recollection of our encounter. That's how little connection I had with anyone. I was a mess, but a mess I've taken responsibility for."
Security at an all-time high as President Joe Biden's son Hunter appeared in court today.
Hunter Biden settled a years-long paternity battle earlier this summer with Roberts in an Arkansas court. Back in 2019, Roberts said in court filings that a DNA test established with, quote, "scientific certainty" that Hunter Biden is the father, something he had previously denied. He agreed to pay monthly child support in 2020. And the new settlement between Hunter Biden and Roberts includes a college fund, an undisclosed amount of child support, and a number of Hunter Biden's paintings to be selected by the little girl. Efforts to reach Roberts for comment have been unsuccessful. Republicans now looking to turn President Biden's family story, long seen as a political strength, into a liability. The president has not counted this grandchild his 7th when he talks about them.
I have 6 grandchildren. I speak to them every single day.
Conservative outlets pointing out how the White House Christmas stocking this year did not include the little girl. The White House asked earlier this month about it all.
There was a story in the New York Times over the weekend about Hunter Biden's daughter in Arkansas. Does the president acknowledge this little girl as his granddaughter?
I don't have anything to share from here.
Now here's where things get even more interesting, man. Biden is acknowledging this child after literally ignoring her for years, treating the White House dog more like a family member, to be honest. And it's really, really sad, man. It's a fascinating story, but it's a sad story. It's fascinating because to me, it shows a serious character defect. And I can't believe that it doesn't show a serious character defect to even the most ardent Biden supporter. But it seems like no one really seems to want to confront this character defect. What's even more fascinating, CNN just had a talk with a panel, a lot of GOP people on it. The host got pretty pissed with the GOP panelists. And really, all they were doing was speaking their mind about Joe Biden not recognizing a child, not recognizing a 7th grandchild, which really would be no big deal, except for the fact that the man and the media have just beat us over the head with how he treats his grandchildren and how much he cares, and that, his world revolves around his grandchildren. He's just a regular old family guy like you. That's why him not recognizing a seventh grandchild is such a big deal. You know, we're not crazy people for bringing this up. This goes to the root of everything we've been told about the guy and everything about his character. Anyway, the host literally lost her stuff. It's something to see CNN reacting so strongly to what I'd imagine literally any compassionate person on the planet would feel. And you've got to see this. But before we show that, guys, thanks to everyone that's been subscribing and sharing such positive comments. We really appreciate the support. If you haven't already, make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Most importantly, share the Common Sense Garage, guys. Help us get our message out there. Help us smash this algorithm. And every time you do, the leftists will lose their wings, I promise.
So one thing that we heard some of the GOP candidates bring up in Iowa, President Biden is now acknowledging his 7th grandchild. There was a statement out on Friday night. Our son Hunter, they said, and Navy's mother Lunden are working together to foster a relationship that is in the best interests of their daughter, preserving her privacy as much as possible going forward. This is not a political issue. It's a family matter. Jill and I only want what is best for our grandchildren, including Navy. So just for a little bit of context here, the president had come under scrutiny for only acknowledging his other grandchildren, his first 6 grandchildren. I shouldn't say first 6 grandchildren, but the others that the family has acknowledged who have the Biden last name. And his family ultimately decided to do this. And Michael LaRosa, you worked for Jill Biden for a long time. Can you help us understand this a little bit? Because I do think for many of the critics, certainly, and there was a Maureen Dowd column about this in the New York Times, this is a very innocent little girl who did nothing wrong, despite, what her father, Hunter Biden, may have been going through at the time. Why now for the Bidens? And honestly, why did it take them so long?
Well, 2 things. First of all, I respect you as a journalist for having to ask the question, but it is a very gross and uncomfortable subject to talk about as it is.
Well, let's not call a little girl gross. Okay?
No. I'm talking about the intersanctum of a family and the privacy of what goes on in a family. And you're right, that little girl, she should not be weaponized by the Republicans who are down there in Arkansas with conservative lawyers and conservative PR people and posting on their Instagram. They shouldn't be weaponizing her. And everybody's welcome to make their own personal judgments on the Biden. But it is frankly, they are a family, a real family with real feelings, with real struggles and challenges, like every family. And I guarantee you that the more that the Republicans make this an issue, it will not work. Voters appreciate, voters relate to having struggles in their own families. They root for people with vulnerabilities. They root for people who understand and relate to them. And, ultimately, the Bidens are a real family just like everyone else. Sure.
But Scott Jennings, the president has made being a family man a central part of his political identity.
It's not Republicans, with all due respect, who made Hunter Biden into a complete scumbag on this and other issues. The ignoring his own daughter for 4 years and the President of the United States hanging up a stocking for the dog and not for his 7th grandchild.
Okay, look, we can also have sympathy for people who are struggling with addiction. Let's keep this conversation respectful.
Listen, I totally agree. And you know where I'm from, a lot of families deal with addiction. And you know who ends up picking up the pieces? The grandparents. And in this case, the grandparents would not acknowledge this little girl. It is offensive. But the bottom line is...
But they have now.
Oh, what a hero. The polling must have been brutal.
The
polling must have been brutal.
No one ever questioned the heart and integrity of Joe Biden as a family man and as a human being and the pain and suffering and loss that man has been through, including the struggles he deals with.
With 30 seconds, Karen.
I think it is far more appalling to see Republicans this week, starting with you, Scott, calling the Vice President of the United States a liar when it comes to the very real personal stories. I don't need, some, academic to tell me about the horrors of slavery. It's in my own family. I know from my own family stories. You now have Black conservatives who agree with her. Are they liars too? I think that conversation is far more troubling than an addict and a bad family situation.
Let me put a pause on this. Last word here, then we're going to go to break.
It's a nice attempt at a pivot, but it's not about Hunter Biden's addiction. This is about Joe Biden not recognizing his granddaughter for 4 years. The statement might be well worded, but it's inexcusable. It took him 4 years to acknowledge the child of God. It was conceived regardless of the circumstances of that conception. It's a child of God he wouldn't recognize for 4 years.
I understand why you'd rather talk about that than talk about the fact that your party is demonizing people who want to tell the truth about racism while you're trying to reach out to African American voters.
We're going to keep this conversation focused in on what is, and we've got a lot more to talk about, and we'll be right back.
So what's really entertaining here is how hard this CNN host seems to be trying to protect the Bidens. It's almost like she's forced to discuss a subject that she really wants to avoid, even though her job is to deliver the news. And this is the news. You know, the effort she goes through to shield the Bidens is just insane, man. The crazy thing to me is how anyone can really defend or try and justify some of this stuff, how they can hear the words, how they can not hear the words coming out of their mouth as they're justifying what is really just some of the most despicable behavior a human can do. You know, one panelist defending Biden says that even talking about the unacknowledged grandchild is gross. The host, already predetermined to be upset, she misinterpreted that, thinking that they were calling the child gross and got all crazy. But another panelist, Scott Jennings, calls out Biden's son, and the host gets triggered again. His point is valid. The Bidens are treating their family dog better than a blood relative, better than an innocent little child. You know, they literally went to court to keep this little girl from, quote unquote, being a Biden. You know, there really is no one word for any of this. But if there is, it's just shameful, man. This is shameful. You know, the Democrats seem to have opened the door for this kind of conversation by not holding back when it came to Trump's kids. And now the issue of Biden not acknowledging his grandchild has become a talking point for even those on the left. We've been told for decades that this is a family man joke. And this is a bad look. You know, we're used to politicians being full of it. We expect it. But this is on an extreme whole other level, man. Anyway, the whole situation, it does exemplify the Democrats' strategy of deflecting when confronted with any unflattering truth. You know, they try to turn the conversation to something else, like racism usually, rather than addressing any issue head on. You know, what we're witnessing here is the consequence of the Democrats' earlier attacks on Trump's kids. I mean, they made this happen. They opened the door for some of this stuff. You know, they opened the door because they just didn't like the guy. And now in this case, we actually have actual abhorrent behavior. We have overseas shady business dealings. We have trying to skip out on child support with a little girl that you impregnated her mom in a strip club or whatever, you know, allegedly. So now they're facing the backlash, man. And they started this. You know, they opened this can. And obviously, you know, it's clear, you know, the Biden's handling of this family situation, it's causing political problems for him, which of course is the only reason that he would dare even mention an innocent 4-year-old little granddaughter now, because of a political problem, instead of what's right, instead of because he's family man Joe. No, because of politics, man. And it's sick. It's sick. So where does that leave us, man? You know, with a lesson on being careful, you know, about the lines we cross politically, obviously, because they'll always get turned back around on you, you know. And maybe it's a reminder that politics is messy and we should try to remain decent, both sides. You know, even when the heat is on, man. In my opinion, part of being decent, just a decent human, not even a decent president, which you need to be a decent human to be a decent president, I believe, is not ignoring and not shunning a child because you think the fact that your son is a total POS is a political liability. That's just wrong, you know? That should matter to people. Anyway, that's just my take, guys. Let me know your take in the comments. You guys, don't forget to like, subscribe, and most importantly, share the Common Sense Garage. We'll see you in the next one.